There is a certain kind of apology that doesn't come from politeness, courtesy, or manners. It comes from wounds. Deep wounds. The kind that never got the chance to heal properly. Kind that taught you slowly, silently, that existing must somehow be a disturbance. And if you've spent years saying sorry for things that should never require an apology, then this story is yours. Because behind every unnecessary sorry is a lifetime of moments where you learned, consciously or unconsciously, that your safety depended on shrinking yourself. The truth is, people who apologize too much are not weak. They are not overly dramatic. They are not trying too hard to please. They are survivors. They are people who are forced to become experts at keeping peace in places where peace never came naturally. People who learned how to fold themselves into the smallest possible version just to avoid conflict, disappointment, anger, or emotional withdrawal. Over-apologizing is not a personality trait, it is a trauma response, a survival mechanism, self-protective instinct shaped by experiences you rarely talk about, even to yourself. Maybe you grew up in a home where the atmosphere changed instantly. One moment everything was normal, and the next moment a single mistake, a single question, a single noise could trigger an explosion. So you learned early, stay quiet, stay small, stay apologetic. Because if anything went wrong, whether or not it was your fault, apologizing felt like the safest thing you could do. It felt like the only thing you could do. And once that pattern settled into your nervous system, it stayed there long after the danger disappeared. Or maybe your childhood wasn't explosive, but emotionally cold. Maybe no one yelled, but no one listened either.
Ow.
Maybe every time you tried to express your emotions, you were told you were too sensitive, overreacting, or making things difficult. And little by little, you learned that your emotions were burdens, your needs were annoying, and your presence required justification. So you learned to smooth yourself down. You learned to move through the world quietly, gently, apologetically, as if your existence was something people had to tolerate rather than welcome. And so, the apologies began. Not because you were wrong, but because you learned to anticipate being wrong. You apologized before speaking because you feared your thoughts weren't valuable. You apologized when someone else made a mistake because you felt responsible for their comfort. You apologized when you expressed sadness or anger because somewhere along the way, you internalized the belief that your emotions were dangerous, unnecessary, or embarrassing. Apologizing became a way of keeping yourself safe from disappointment, abandonment, or conflict. This is the pain behind apologizing too much. You are not trying to make things better. You are trying to prevent things from getting worse, but no one sees this. To the world, you look polite, kind, easy to talk to. Someone who never causes problems. Someone who goes with the flow. Someone who doesn't mind. Someone who doesn't complain. Someone who apologizes instantly and gracefully, even when they didn't do anything wrong. But what the world doesn't see is the exhaustion underneath all of that. Because every unnecessary apology chips away at you. Every reflexive, "I'm sorry," reinforces the belief that you are in the wrong even when you're not. Every time you say sorry for having a need, a boundary, a mistake, or a feeling, you shrink a little more. You disappear a little more. You disconnect from your authentic self a little more. Over time, you begin to believe that your presence itself is a disruption, that you must justify everything you do, that you have to earn your place in every room, that your safety depends on being pleasing, predictable, agreeable, self-sacrificing. And this belief becomes the invisible cage you live in. But here's the truth you were never told. You're not apologizing because you're wrong. You're apologizing because you were conditioned to fear what happens when you're not. Maybe you had to grow up too fast. Maybe you became the mediator in your family, the one who had to keep peace, resolve conflicts, prevent chaos. Maybe you learned how to read tone shifts, body language, mood changes with terrifying accuracy. Hypervigilance became your superpower. But superpowers come with a price. You never truly feel relaxed. You never feel allowed to let your guard down. You never feel safe enough to express what you really feel. So apologizing becomes the easiest way to avoid triggering someone's disappointment or anger. Maybe you spent years in a relationship where love was conditional, where affection depended on your ability to be easy, good, not dramatic, where your partner made you feel responsible for their emotions, where every disagreement felt like a test you could fail, where silence felt like punishment. So you learned to apologize quickly, just to restore peace. Even when you weren't wrong, even when you were the one hurting. even when you were the one abandoned or betrayed. Maybe you were surrounded by people who never took accountability, people who made their mistakes your problem, people who blamed you for things you didn't do, people who told you that you were overreacting when you tried to defend yourself. After enough time, you began to believe them. You began to question your memory, your feelings, your instincts. You began to think that maybe apologizing was the simplest way to avoid being misunderstood or attacked. The pain behind apologizing too much is this: you learn to take responsibility for things that were never yours. And the tragedy is that this habit doesn't just protect you, it hurts you, because it keeps you trapped in guilt you don't deserve. It keeps you small, keeps you afraid of taking up space. It keeps you quiet even when you should speak. It keeps you apologizing for being human, for needing things, for making mistakes, for having feelings. But here's the truth. No one ever told you. You don't need to apologize for existing. You don't need to apologize for being human. You don't need to apologize for asking for clarity, respect, or kindness. You don't need to apologize when someone else mistreats you. You don't need to apologize for expressing your limits. You don't need to apologize for saying no. You don't need to apologize for wanting to feel safe. You don't need to apologize for wanting love, reassurance, connection, understanding. You are not a burden. You are a person, and your needs matter. But healing this reflex takes time, because apologizing too much is not a simple habit you can switch off. It is a nervous system response, a deeply built pattern, a lifetime of conditioning. And unlearning it requires patience and gentleness with yourself. You will not wake up one day and suddenly stop apologizing. But you can begin to notice when you apologize unnecessarily. You can begin to pause before the apology escapes your lips. You can begin practicing replacement phrases instead of "sorry for bothering you." Try, "Do you have a moment?" Instead of "sorry for asking again," try, "I want to make sure I understand." Instead of "sorry, I'm so emotional," try, "these feelings matter." Instead of "sorry, I'm late," try, "thank you for waiting." Instead of "sorry for ranting," try, "thank you for listening." These small shifts matter more than you think. They retrain your nervous system. They rebuild your confidence. They teach your brain that your needs are not dangerous. They teach your body that you are not in trouble. They teach your inner child that she is allowed to exist without earning acceptance. They teach your adult self that you are worthy of love without sacrificing yourself. Because the root of over-apologizing is not guilt, it is fear. The fear of being misunderstood, fear of being rejected, the fear of being punished, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being seen as too much. But you are not too much. You are someone who adapted to pain, someone who learned to survive in silence, someone who learned to protect yourself by shrinking, someone who learned to keep peace, even when that peace costs you your voice. And now, it's time to rewrite that story. Imagine the version of you who speaks without shaking, the version of you who expresses her needs clearly, the version of you who sets boundaries without guilt, the version of you who doesn't apologize for taking up space, the version of you who trusts her own emotions, the version of you who no longer carries the weight of other people's reactions, the version of you who understands that her feelings are valid, her presence is valuable, and her voice deserves to be heard. That version of you is not a fantasy. She is already inside you. She's the version you were always meant to be. The version who was buried under years of self-blame and emotional suppression. It's the version who is finally ready to breathe. And when you stop apologizing unnecessarily, something powerful begins to happen. You start to see yourself differently. You stop blaming yourself for everything. You stop feeling responsible for everyone's emotions. You stop expecting rejection. You stop preparing for the worst. You stop looking for signs that you are unwanted. You stop apologizing for being human. You begin to take up space, slowly, then boldly. You begin to speak softly, then confidently. You begin to feel emotions quietly, then fully. You begin to choose yourself cautiously, then unapologetically. And you realize something astonishing. The world doesn't collapse when you stop apologizing. The people who truly care about you don't leave. The people who love you don't get angry when you express your feelings. The people who are meant for you don't punish you for having needs. And the ones who do, they were never safe to begin with. You will begin to see who deserves a place in your life and who only stayed because your apologies made it easy for them. You will stop attracting people who feed on your guilt, your uncertainty, your desire to please. You will begin attracting people who make you feel safe enough not to apologize for everything. People who respect your boundaries, your voice, your emotions. People who don't weaponize your mistakes. People who don't confuse your empathy for weakness. People who don't punish you for being human. Healing from over-apologizing is not just a change in behavior. It is a transformation in self-worth. You learn that you are allowed to take up space. You learn that you are allowed to exist without permission. You learn that your needs matter. You learn that your emotions matter. You learn that your experiences matter. You learn that you matter. And when that realization sinks in deeply, fully, quietly, the world begins to feel different, safer, gentler, more open. And suddenly, the apologies that once fell from your lips like a reflex begin to fade. Not because you're trying to be different, but because you're finally learning that you never had to apologize to begin with. The pain behind apologizing too much is real, but so is the healing that follows. And one day, not too far from now, you will look back at the version of you who apologized for everything and understand something profound. She wasn't weak. She wasn't foolish. She wasn't overly sensitive. She was surviving. She was protecting herself the only way she knew how. She was doing her best in environments that didn't protect her. She was carrying fears that weren't hers. She was holding responsibilities she never should have been given. And she deserves your compassion, not your judgment. Because healing does not happen through criticism. It happens through understanding, through patience, through forgiveness, through rebuilding the trust you lost in yourself. And the first step toward that healing is simple. You stop apologizing for things that were never your fault. Stop apologizing for being human. You stop apologizing for existing. You start living fully, boldly, softly, truthfully, unapologetically.